Listen, if you're going through YouTube right now, just trying to find the next cool chord scale theory idea or the next hip lick to apply to your jazz improv, stop right now. None of that stuff really matters if you're not practicing the right things and you're not practicing it in an effective way. So in today's video, I want to simplify jazz improvisation and boil it down to 3 categories to practice. And not only that, give a practice plan for that so we can get real results in our jazz improvisation. Let's do this thing. What's up? Brent here from LearnJazzStandards.com, which is a blog, a podcast, and videos all geared towards helping you become a better jazz musician. Thanks for being here. Make sure you subscribe at the button below if you've never done that before. Like I said, I want to make jazz improvisation simple. There's so much stuff out there on the internet. There's so many things that people are telling you to do. There's all these sexy chord scale stuff out there that if you just try this, then maybe it'll take your solos to the next level. Not really. None of that stuff is really the most important things. And we're going to be talking about the important things. Now, I did do a video before on what I call my big 3 things you should be practicing. I'll link that up above. And today's video talks about those things, but more importantly, gives an actual practice program to go along with them. But here's the question I want you to be answering in the comments below while watching this video. What do you think is the ultimate jazz practice plan? I want to hear your comments down below in your opinions. Love to hear all of that. All right, without further ado, let's jump into this practice plan. So like I said, this practice plan is based off of what I call my big 3 things you should be practicing, which is technique, jazz repertoire, and jazz language. So this practice plan today will revolve around those things. So first, let's start with technique. So when I talk about technique, this has nothing to do with jazz. This has to do with being able to play your instrument and navigate your instrument. And why do we want to be able to do that? Well, because jazz improvisation requires us to be able to navigate our instruments in a way that will allow us to act in the moment, to be able to improvise, to be able to play ideas that maybe our fingers might not be ready for. We want our fingers to be ready for those ideas. So there's 2 kinds of technical exercises that I think we should be working on. And the first one is instrument specific. So if you're a trumpet player, long tones might be the thing for you. If you're a saxophone player, getting that breath through your horn might be the thing for you. If you're a guitar player like me, it might be playing different things in different positions, be able to play all your inversions, being able to play chord tones all over the neck and demystify the mystery that is the guitar. The second one that I would really say applies to all instruments is fundamentals. Now, this includes scales, this includes arpeggios, and all these different things, exercises we can do. And patterns is a really great idea to apply to all of these fundamentals. My 30 Steps to Better Jazz Playing course, we do different patterns over specific scales that really help take your pattern playing and ability to navigate different things in your instrument to the next level. Now, just for example's sake, let's say we have a 7-day practice program that we're doing. I know that's not realistic for everybody. Doesn't matter if it's consecutive days, but let's just say it's 7 practice sessions. So how do we apply this? So the first day we work on 1 bit of instrument specific technique and 1 pattern or fundamental. That could be 1 scale, it could be 1 pattern, doesn't matter, just 1 small little bit. The second day, we add more to that. We do the same thing, but do another pattern, or do another instrument-specific exercise. All the way through day 7, that's what we do, okay? Now, I would suggest if you're doing something like, I have my 6 patterns for major scales handout or something like that, that you would review on that 7-day all of those patterns to make sure you have them under your fingers. But because technique is such a broad thing and really depends on what instrument you play, I'm being general here. I'm not being as specific as I will in the other categories. The point is just 1 small thing every single day. I call this batching. We don't want to do too much, just a little bit. Okay, let's move on to jazz repertoire. We need to learn jazz standards. The jazz standards will teach us how to play. They are the vehicles in which the jazz musicians use to improvise. If we are learning jazz standards, we will become better jazz musicians. Okay, so I will suggest learning jazz standards by ear. I'll link up in the cards my list process for learning jazz standards. That will be very helpful for you if you haven't heard about that before. But with that in mind, here's the program that I would go through in a 7-day session to learn an entire jazz standard and really get some good practicing behind it. Session number 1 is just to learn the melody. So you're not doing anything else the first session, only learn the melody. That's all you should do. Session number 2 is to learn the chords. You can also review the melody during this session, but you just spend the session learning the chords. Session number 3 is to start improvising. Now, this is just getting your hands and feet dirty, just starting to do it. Don't worry about if it sounds good or if it doesn't sound good. You need to start improvising in order to get it. Doing is what's really going to help you get in there and start learning and start applying different concepts. Session number 4, you're going to improvise again. And then session number 5, 6, you're going to improvise again. And session number 7, you're going to improvise again. So the jazz repertoire is really about spending a lot of time improvising. Yes, you can apply licks. Yes, you can apply some chord scale theory, all that stuff. But the idea is that you're starting to work through your improvisation and taking particularly difficult parts of the jazz standard and working on those. And that's all that you can really do is get that melody, get the chords, and just start improvising. Okay, item number 3 is jazz language. At the end of the day, the scales, the chord scale stuff, all that stuff is cool, but you really need to know the language. And how do I suggest doing that outside of just listening to jazz? I suggest learning jazz solos and jazz licks, small musical ideas by ear. This is incredibly effective. Lots of my students report back to me that this is the big game-changing thing for them. So I divide jazz language into 2 categories, micro and macro jazz language. So micro would be small little licks, small little ideas over a chord progression like a 2-5-1 or a 1-6-2-5. Now macro is like learning entire jazz solos or at least large portions of jazz solos. For example, a Sonny Rollins jazz solo, you might understand better how he actually approached everything in context rather than a small micro piece. You get this broader picture view and you learn a lot from doing this. So let's take learning a jazz solo, for example, a very overwhelming task. But for breaking this into 7 sessions, here's what it's going to look like. Session number 1, you're going to learn the first 8 bars or phrase of the solo. Session number 2, you're going to learn the next 8 bars or phrase of the solo. In the session number 3, you're going to review session 1 and session 2. Review is hugely important in my mind when learning jazz language and reinforcing what you're learning. Session number 4, you're going to learn another 8 bars or the next phrase. Session number 5, another 8 bars or the next phrase. Session number 6, you're going to review session 4 and 5 of the solo so that you can remember everything in between from the previous review session. Now, session number 7 is where you review all of it. Now, at this point, you should have 32 bars of a solo. So if it's a 32 bar form, that means you've learned 1 course of the solo. Now, imagine if you learned 32 bars of a solo, where would you be with understanding more about jazz language? You would be way ahead of where you are right now. So I've gone through all of these individually, but the big picture view is really important. We're still dealing with technique, jazz repertoire, and jazz language. So this is what the practice program really looks like when you put it all together. Notice that on each day you have a little bit of technique, a little bit of jazz repertoire, a little bit of jazz language. And all of this is manageable. Yes, it is a lot of work, but it's simplified. You're not doing a billion different things. You're not jumping from one lick to the other lick. You're really taking a little bit of information and cycling it over and over again. And if this is how you practice, my friend, you for sure will improve your jazz improvisation. Even with just this one 7-day session here or 7 sessions, you will improve a lot. All right, so like I said, this is my opinion. I want to hear from you in the comments. What do you think is the ultimate jazz practicing session? Would love to fill that comment section as full as many different ideas from everybody so we can all learn from each other. I did mention my 30 Steps to Better Jazz Playing course. Essentially, we do practice sessions like this, but with community, but with the support, with different materials to work through. All of everything is given to you, ready to go. So you can go to 30stepstobetterjazzplaying.com if that sounds like something that you know is going to help you and motivate you. Go ahead and do that. All right. That's all for today's video. Make sure you give this a big like at the button below. I want to see as many likes on this video, and make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.